Welcome to another meeting of TV Holics Anonymous. Quick, hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. You can also follow us on our socials too: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on whatever you're listening to this podcast on. Welcome to another meeting of TV Holics Anonymous. My name is Ruru and I am a freaking TV holic. So today I'm here again doing a solo episode without Mimi because I have to get this out because this just dropped on Netflix, Big Mistakes, and that's the title. Not that it's a big mistake, but kind of is. Well, I'll get into that. Anyway, so yeah, this premiered I think this April, so just like a few days ago, and it was apparently highly anticipated, and it follows it's a follow-up series of Schitt's Creek that was also on Netflix, and that was by Dan Levy. So I was intrigued to see what this would be like. I just want to premise this by saying that there's a lot that I thought of during watching this. It gave me a lot of anxiety watching it. I felt like they made really stupid decisions that could have been, easily avoidable and easily if they just talked it through, they wouldn't have to have made those mistakes or decisions or, choices that they did. But nevertheless, they did, and that made TV for us. But it wasn't really, in my opinion, realistic or something that I could follow because they kept, it just moved on to huger and huger stakes, and there was no real, I feel, character development for some of the characters, like one of the siblings, Natalie. I just feel like they didn't even show her partner, and they just showed her to be the kiss ass kind of little sister. And there was good things in the show, but I just want to premise this by saying that. And it's meant to be a crime comedy thriller that kind of blends high stakes underworld danger with petty kind of relatable day-to-day stuff, squabbles that you have with your siblings or your family members, your mother and things like that. I also think that there's going to be a season 2 for this because they left it on this kind of cliffhanger. And oh yeah, I forgot to say, spoiler alert, there's going to be spoilers all over this episode, so if you haven't watched it, go and watch it and come back and listen to this, because there's a lot of things that I've got some sneak peeks, behind the scenes stuff and gossip and all sorts of stuff as well to discuss here. So I just want to go through character by character. I think Morgan, played by Taylor Ortega, she played the role really, really well. I thought she was very, believable, her character. Also, Dan Levy, he's a great actor, so he played his role really, really well too. Jack Enanan, I don't know how to say your name, mate, sorry. But he played Max, Morgan's boyfriend, and he also played his role very, very well. I would say everyone played the role well. I just didn't know about the Yusuf character. I didn't really believe that he was what he was. I just found him annoying. Also, I liked Tarek, Jacob Gutierrez. His character was played well. Elizabeth Perkins did a great job playing Annette. And Linda, the mother, was played by Laurie Metcalf. I know her from Roseanne, playing Jackie, Roseanne's sister. She's an excellent actress. She's amazing, and she nailed this role. She's really good at doing what she does. Abby Quinn again, playing Natalie. Yeah, I found her really annoying, really to be a kiss ass younger sibling. I really believed that as well. Then Ivan, played by Mark Ivana. Ivina. Again, sorry about the pronunciations. Yeah, he was like really good as well, and obviously by his surname, I think that he can speak Russian. So I think they just wanted to cast someone who was like Russian for the Russian mobster role. Anyway, I think I just want to say that like I thought that they played the roles very well, but the script was not so good because it didn't really there wasn't much like it wasn't cohesive enough for me. Like I felt like there was like loads of cracks that they didn't fill in. I know it's meant to be a comedy and also like a crime kind of comedy situation, but I felt like the crime bits weren't criming, as in it wasn't like mixing in. Like it didn't make sense why a school teacher would like steal a necklace, and it doesn't make sense how chaotic these two were before, like now the brother and sister who are a school teacher and a priest, and they were never previously that chaotic, and they were able to be not that chaotic enough to get their roles in life to become a priest and go into seminary school and all that stuff, and then also she went through like university and all that stuff to be a teacher. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all to me that how they'll just like flip like that and like don't communicate with each other when they're in high stakes situations like this. And they could have just like stopped this all in the first place by just getting the necklace out of the casket in the first place. As soon as they found out about it, they could have gone and handled that instead of digging up the grave. Also, they didn't show like if they kind of like put the grave back together, they gave the keys back to, the security guy at the graveyard or anything like that. It was just like very incomplete. I want to say, oh yeah, so the creators of this were Dan Levy and Rachel Sonot. But I think that Dan Levy should have basically, tied all these like loose ends up before they, I felt like it was like like a script that they were like kind of like trying to sell to the network, and they didn't complete it. Like it was just like the first draft of the script, because it didn't come together, like I said, cohesively. Anyway, it was like, I think, like a dark comedy, like crime thriller comedy situation. So yeah, it had 8 episodes. I could have done with more episodes and longer episodes. They could have like fleshed it out a bit to explain away all these situations and make them like a bit more like rounded, the characters. Because yeah, the writing was not as great. Like it wasn't as good as I thought it'd be anticipated it to be. It's nowhere near as good as Schitt's Creek, basically. That was comedy gold and it was amazing. I loved that show. So yeah, comparing it to that, I know it's not fair to compare a new show to an old show, but Dan Levy, I just expected a bit more. Like I said, his acting was impeccable, but like the script, it wasn't finished. It was like the first draft. Anyway, so like the core premise, I think, of this was like two dysfunctional siblings like accidentally stealing like a necklace. Well, you can't accidentally steal a necklace. They didn't accidentally steal it. They stole it. She stole it. And it's like tied to the Italian mob and blackmail and like becoming like reluctant kind of fixers of like this kind of like criminal syndicate or whatever. So let's talk about what I do think they showed, basically the character development that they did show. So these are a few notes I made. Like Nicky, played by Dan Levy, I think he is like he on the show, he was like, let's just talk about what he is. He was a closeted pastor, like priest kind of situation, in a small New Jersey town, and he's like highly strung and anxious and like deeply connected to his like reputation and all that stuff. That's why he didn't want to, okay, we'll get into that in a second. So it kind of the season begins with like he's like terrified basically of like people finding out that he's like in a relationship because his congregation didn't like want him to be in a relationship. They were okay with him being gay, but they didn't want him to be a practicing gay man. They wanted him to be like, celibate. So he's like basically afraid of his own shadow, like basically afraid of people like finding out and like of his like congregation's judgment, basically. And by the final episode, I think that his like pastor voice becomes like more of a tool for him, and he uses it to manipulate some of the criminals, and he also uses it to get them to do his dirty work for him to help his boyfriend out. And it kind of like shows a darker, more like, I think, pragmatic side to his like morality. And you see him like questioning his like standing in the church and everything, and he's constantly looking at that picture on the wall, and then he takes it down eventually at the end. He also tells his boyfriend at the end like everything that happened, which is interesting because the girl Morgan, she can't really tell her boyfriend because the boyfriend is the son of the mob boss. So it's like it's a tricky situation. So luckily she didn't tell him from the start, because if you'd been with someone that long, like she was with him since high school, like she should have told him by now, or she would have told him by now. So it's like it's weird. It doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm saying. Like the script was not scripting for me. Anyway, let's talk about Morgan now. So yeah, so that's Nikki's sister, and she's like a chaotic elementary school teacher who basically recently moved back home after failing to make it in New York, because she went to New York. Her boyfriend was like proud of her for that and like, jealous of her going there. And then initially, I think she was like shown to be like very self-destructive and messy and a person that drags her brother and other people into like her trouble. And Morgan eventually steps in up as like the brawn of like her between her brother and sister. She's like the muscle basically, and her growth basically, I think, revolves around like realizing her mistakes, and it often stems from like her desire to be seen and be seen as like an important person to her like overbearing mother. That's what I think. And then let's go move on to her mother. So played by Laurie Metcalf. She's like the matriarch of the family. She's very, very strong, very vocal. She owns a local hardware store and is currently running in a campaign to be the mayor. The campaign's a bit of a mess, and it's run by her youngest child. She's emotional. She's like more of like has a drill sergeant personality. And she's like the head of the family. She's divorced from her husband, and we just see him pop in and pop out a few times. He is the ex chief of police, I think. And then Max, he is played by Jack Innen, and that's Morgan's like clingy kind of like reversed role. Like he's the girl in the relationship, and she's kind of like wears the pants in the relationship. So yeah, he is like really like clingy and sweet and oblivious to like everything that's going on, and he's like her long-term boyfriend, and he represents the normal kind of like life that she's like living kind of thing, and he's like desperately trying to protect like what they have together. And when they're like committing these crimes and stuff, they don't realize it all ties into his mother and him and all that stuff. So that's quite interesting. I'm losing my voice, so I just really desperately need a sip of water, so I'm just going to do that. So bear with me. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, he's like, oh, where was I? Okay, so like episode by episode, let's just talk about it like that. So I did make some notes. So when their Nona passes away, basically they like his mother like encourages him, Nikki's mother encourages him to get a necklace. Like she would like a necklace, so they put it they that's why basically Morgan steals the necklace. So to satisfy their dying grandmother's wish for like a family kind of like heirloom, Morgan like steals the diamond necklace from the local store, and they basically quickly realize that the shop was just kind of like a front for the mob. And then in episode 2, Hardware Store Blues, the mob basically tracks them down, Nikki and uh Nikki and Nikki and Morgan. And instead of like killing them, the mid-level enforcer realizes they're basically average Joes, and their appearance makes them like basically the perfect like mules basically for like moving contraband through like places like through that store and like other operations, so they want to keep them around. So then the third episode is when Nikki has to deliver like a Sunday sermon while literally um hiding a burner phone and a bag of like laundered cash under his like pulpit. And then episode 4 is when a delivery goes wrong, and um the siblings spend the episode like bickering about their like childhood while they're trying to like recover. Well, I'm a bit confused. What are these notes? Well, they're trying to recover stuff. Um, I'm really confused. Okay, so I'm not going to go through these notes because I think I got confused with something else. And also, they go to like the Florida trip and all that. And then yeah, the Florida trip. That's when they meet the Brazilian cartel, and then everyone's like kind of like shot down and everything. And like they're the only ones standing in the room, and they realize like later on at the end that it's all thanks to Max's mum, who is, the head of the mob. So it's all a crazy situation, and I don't think that Annette's going to have a small role next season. I think she's going to have a huge role. Also, I think Max is going to have a bigger role. I think maybe the younger sibling sister is going to have a bigger role. Everyone's going to have a bigger role. And hopefully, if they do a next season, a new season, they have like longer episodes and a longer season and make the script better. Like, I don't want a first draft script. I want like a full thing. Um, I did kind of by the last episode see it coming that Annette was like the head of the mob, because she said that thing about her son being on top of the dad drove around like a few blocks, putting the son at the top of the on top of the roof of the car, and then he was like gone after that, never to be seen again or something like that. So I thought that sounds like a hit. She put a hit out on him or whatever. She killed him, basically. That's what I thought. Anyway, so behind the scenes gossip, um, for casting the pilot, basically. Oh no, not casting the pilot. Let's just talk about the show was like originally meant to star Rachel Sonnet, alongside Dan Levy. However, due to their like scheduling conflicts with her other show, I Love LA, she basically stayed on as an executive producer and writer, and Taylor Ortega was cast as Morgan. And critics basically noted that Ortega's performance carries like kind of like sonnet-esque energy. That's what people said. The filming locations for the show were entirely in New Jersey, and they filmed for about 46 days. And the key spots they included were Fosterfield's Living Historical Farm, in Morristown and Hazelwood Cemetery in Colonia and Edison's Millwork and Hardware, the real life location for the family store that was. And then there was like a lot of Schitt's Creek influence there as well. So Levy has stated in a number of interviews that the idea of the show came from his own irrational anxiety and accidentally committing a crime, like about because he basically said he has anxiety about like accidentally committing a crime, like leaving a store without paying, or how he would be like the worst criminal in history. So I understand the premise, and I thought it could have been a lot better. Like I said, out of 10, I think I would give this about a solid 5 or 6 out of 10. It's just because of the script being bad. That's all. Like the script is like storyline could have just needed more fusion in there. Other things that critics have said about this is while the show, I think it's been in the top 10 hit list for Netflix. I believe in the US and in the UK, because right now when I watched it, it was in the top 10. But like they didn't like people have been saying that they didn't like the tonal shifts, and some critics felt that the jump from witty family banter to organized crime violence was like jarring and like inconsistent. And I thought that too. And then the moral ambiguity as well. A segment of like the audience found it difficult to root for Nicky, a pastor who consistently lies to his community through like these like little white lie kind of situations. And then fans also argued this is the point of like the mistakes in the title. Yeah, but they're not really mistakes, I don't think. I don't know. And then like some viewers also like complained about like the dim lighting and the gritty like cinematography, um comparing it like to Schitt's Creek, but like Schitt's Creek was like an aesthetic of like it was kind of like Schitt's Creek aesthetic, but not as cozy and comfortable. It was like uncomfortable. Um, yeah. So I do want to hear everyone else's thoughts. I I want to see season 2. If there's a season 2, I'll watch it. But I expect better scripts, especially from Dan Levy. Like he's an excellent actor, and Schitt's Creek was amazing. So I expected more. So do better next season. If you're listening, make it good. Make it, something more like with just tie up all the loose ends. Don't make it look like it was like an amateur hour kind of situation. Make it as entertaining as possible. And I just want to know if everyone else would also give it like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 because of the script. Did you guys like the acting? Because I love the acting, like I said, but I just wasn't a fan of the script. Um, I think that there was a lot of chemistry between the actors, especially Nikki and Morgan. They had really good like brother sister energy, excellent acting, and everyone on the cast did pretty well, I think. It's just also I found out that the scenes in Miami weren't really filmed in Miami. Apparently they were filmed in um Puerto Rico. So that was interesting as well. Yeah, so it's not really the math wasn't really mathing on that one, so it's not so great. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say that my episode that I did about million. Oh no, I'm not going to rate that one yet. Million dollar secret. I think I'll rate it after the season's over because shows can have their ups and downs, so I don't want to be too harsh or too easy on them right now. Let's just see what happens. So yeah, we're gonna have so much more up. I'm gonna finish off million dollar secret, and we're gonna have so much K-drama stuff, a lot of variety shows, Korean variety shows. There's gonna be some Japanese reality TV shows. There's gonna be some C-dramas. There's going to be some other reality TV shows, Korean reality TV shows, and kind of like game show kind of things. Not game shows, but you know what I mean. So yeah, there's going to be a lot, and we'll be back, me and Mimi, hopefully soon, because it's hard for me to do these podcast episodes by myself because I keep losing my voice because I do a lot of talking in my daily life, and then I'm adding this on top of that. And like I'm literally losing my voice. So as you can see, my voice is getting really deep and like raspy. I have to keep like taking sips of water to combat that, like I did just now. So yeah, we will be back really soon. Hopefully we'll have some other interesting news for you this summer as well, because we're going to try and expand and do a lot more other stuff, not just the podcast. So stay tuned for that. We're also on like all social media as well. So see you guys soon. Bye. Quick, hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. You can also follow us on our socials too: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on whatever you're listening to this podcast on.